So I'm happy today to be here with Ollie and Atman Smith and Andy Gonzalez, who are really family of Wisdom 2.0 and beloved teachers and leaders in the mindfulness movement. And they're just fun. So I'm excited to share them with you. For those of you that don't know them, welcome, you guys.
Thanks for having us, Michelle.
Yeah, really
Yeah,
good to
thanks for
be
having
here.
us.
So, Ollie, I would love for you to just start off by telling us a little bit about the history of the Holistic Life Foundation. And, we titled this conversation Societal Change Through Involution. And we'll get there because I'm sure we have everyone very curious about what involution means. But could you just start about your journey and path with the Holistic Life Foundation as founders?
Yeah, so Ottman and I are brothers. Grew up in West Baltimore, um, pre-crack in Baltimore, where it was like that beautiful family atmosphere, like in a lot of urban communities before the drug epidemic hit really hard. Our parents were into yoga and meditation, Ayurvedic cooking, things along those lines, being vegan growing up. So I think that's where the seeds are planted for a lot of this. Um, we'll get into a little bit more why later, but that was where the seeds were planted. I think we're planning for the Holistic Life Foundation. As we got into college, I guess as in middle school, we got out of my daily meditation practice, and it was one of those things that was kind of in the back of our minds somewhere, but we weren't really practicing. I think we kind of got totally detached from it as we got older. We met Andy at the University of Maryland College Park, and as we started, I mean, it started off as like going out to parties and hanging, and then it kind of evolved into a book club because we were curious about what the universe had in store for us. You know what I mean, we were moving forward with our lives. We were getting close to graduation, and we knew there were deeper answers out there, but we weren't sure how to connect to them or where they were. We read books on any and every topic we could get our hands on related to ourselves, the universe, the earth, and like the interconnection between all those things. And we had more questions than we were coming up with answers. But a lot of those books were talking about, the answers are within you, but that was just something that wasn't really tangible for us. We weren't really sure how to tap into those answers, where those answers were located inside of us. Our godfather, Uncle Will, was one of those people that got into yoga in the early 60s, early to mid 60s, and never got out of it. He had been trying to introduce the practice to us as we would go hang out with him at his place, just to go hang, but, was right teacher, wrong time at that point. And as we started to approach him about it, Ottman saw a book on his altar. We asked him about it. And then he was like, "Yeah, I can teach you guys how to tap into everything. It's like there's a universe of knowledge and love and power inside of you, but I'm going to show you guys how to tap into it inside of you." And he's just gave us two stipulations. One was that we had to agree to be teachers, and two was that we had to meet him at his place that next morning at 4 a.m. to start practicing. So that I think that really started our journey. That first morning at his place, we started off in his backyard, and we were just thirsty for knowledge. He used to laugh at us because we'd go with notebooks and take notes on the things that he was saying, and we just wanted more and more and more information. So we spent a lot of our time over the next few years in practice and kind of in some sense of solitude. You know what I mean? Like we weren't really socialized with a lot of people. We were more interested in our inner journey than with our outer life. So that was how we spent our time. Was really, really. He would always say you have to be a scientist. Like he could be lying to us about any and everything he was teaching us. We would never know unless we actually did the time to do the work on ourselves. So we did. We became scientists. We became inner scientists, where we were just experimenting on any and everything we can get our hands on, from our dreams to our practice to pranayama to meditation to any and every physical form of yoga we can find, to mantra yoga, to yeah, to pretty much everything, like the off the mat practices that yoga has to offer. And as we started to like figure out, we knew we wanted to do something. We formed the Holistic Life Foundation, and but we weren't sure what we were going to do. But we wanted to figure out some way to share these practices. And when you're seeking, the universe provides answers, and the universe provided us with an opportunity to teach 15 fifth grade boys back in, I guess this was like March of 2002, and that was our first program. It was the very first thing the Holistic Life Foundation did, And it touched us to our souls. We knew that this was a part of our life's work, and this is what we're going to have to continue doing. And we did. And now, all these years later, the Holistic Life Foundation has grown into an organization that's helping about 10,000 kids a week in Baltimore City public schools alone. We've got work set up. We've taught and trained and spoke all over the United States and all over the globe. Our biggest impact is here in Baltimore City because that's where our heart is at and that's where we're from. But I think one of the biggest things that we're working on now is our satellite program. We're working up in Akwesasne at the Mohawk Reservation right on the New York-Canada border, where we're setting up a program where we're doing what we do here. Here we train 18 to 24-year-olds to be able to continue to work and spread our workforce. And up there we're doing the exact same thing. We have a group of young people that we're training to be able to translate what we do into ways that it would speak to the Mohawk people up there. And we've always felt like the best solutions are homegrown. So we'll go up there and set up shop. We have two of our senior instructors living up there for an entire year. The three of us will go up 5 times throughout that year to do some intensive trainings. We have an amazing program coordinator up there and an educational consultant to try to round out the team. And after the end of this year, we'll bring our staff home back to Baltimore, and we'll have a Holistic Life Foundation set up in Akwesasne on the Mohawk Reservation. So we're really excited about that.
Wow. And so there's something, as I'm listening to you, there's just something within each of you that knew, right? There was this light you were following. And, Atman and Ali, you grew up with parents, that were kind of pointing you in this direction. So I'm imagining them kind of off to the side with these little smirks as you guys really started getting into all of this, enjoying themselves, watching you grow in this way. But you all really started kind of reconnecting this in college. And Andy, you didn't grow up in their house. So what happened in college? Like, I would love for each of you to talk to what's been pulling you to this deeper practice throughout your lives. And Andy, I would love for you to start with college when you met these guys and started having these conversations. And this is new story. I'd never heard this story of the book club. And how did this start? Like, how did this knowing begin?
I think it's like Ali said. So we, our party group turned into a book club, which a lot of people think is really weird, but it really was like that. I mean, people think like there's no way that's how it happened, but it really was. We were hanging out late nights, and then next thing you know, instead of us wanting to go out to the bars and party, we were just curious because we started looking at the world and wondering why there was so much suffering and why it didn't seem like anyone cared about it, and like no one was doing anything about it. And we were just curious as to what was going on. And, in college as well, you're at that stage where you're doing a little soul searching. So you're asking yourself who you are, what's your purpose in life? What's the meaning of living and all that type of stuff. So we're having those type of conversations. And at the same time, we're doing all this reading on ancient histories and creation theories and just astronomy, astrology. Like, how did the world come to be and why is it in this state that it's in now? That when we're looking at it, it seemed like there's a lot of ill going on, and all of us were, and still are kind of comic book heads. So we love reading comics, superheroes, that type of stuff. So maybe that was the reason that we were like, well, the three of us are going to save the world. Let's do this, right? Woohoo! And then I think the real transformation started when we started getting into our practice more. I mean, Ali and Ahmed had to practice when they were younger. For me, this was all very, very new to me. So when I started doing some of the breath work and really going inward, and having the conversations we would have with our teacher, I think that's what made me know that this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, that's when destiny kind of set in. And when you start going inward and you realize your real infinite self and how powerful all of us are, and you start seeing yourself and everyone else, I think that you start getting that compassion that is needed in the world, and you start loving everyone and everything as if it was you, and you see the world through different eyes, you hear the world through different ears, and just life changed. And I know for me, it was just something where I just wanted everyone else to feel this way or to experience what I was feeling, because we were broke, living in a rough neighborhood. Life wasn't easy. We just graduated from college, and a lot of friends are making fun of us, like, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to do something with yourself? And we're like, well, we are. And we were still blissing. We were so, so happy that you just knew, right? You knew that this was the right path that you're supposed to be on. So I think for me, that was the main thing, is learning who my real self was And that let me see the world in a completely way. And all I wanted to do was be that reminder to everybody else, because I knew that everybody else knew who they were. They just needed to be reminded of it again. And I think for me, that was the main thing, is understanding who I was and wanting to share that with everyone.
Thank you. Atman?
Hey, Michelle.
Hey!
I guess in regards to what drew me back to the practice, I played basketball for University of Maryland College Park, and I was a pre-vet major, and I was on the social scene like hell. So like all of that kind of made me not really focused on any one thing, and then like walking across campus, I would try to go to class, but then, whether it be my friends telling me like, yo, like, let's go party, or, some of my female friends saying, let's hang out, or, whatever. It was a lot of distractions. Like access, was rampant when I was in college. And, that led to me failing out of school for a year. And, during that year, I was really lost, honestly. I was doing a lot of things that was like really unhealthy when I moved back to Baltimore, just because, looking around, with my friends and where my neighborhood was and all that stuff, you could get into a lot of trouble, and, it wasn't that many positive influences to try to steer you in the right direction. But like Andy was saying, man, like we're really into comic books, Star Wars, Jedis, all that type of stuff. And like Ali said, I saw a book at my uncle's house who had been trying to push yoga, pranayama, Kriya yoga, and all that type of stuff for years. But, it would be during when me and Ali were hanging out with him, like drinking beer, watching sports and stuff like that. And he would say something like, you're putting toxins in your body. We got a practice that can get those toxins out your body, and just started breaking out the breath of fire just because, if you do 3 minutes of the breath of fire, it totally detoxifies your body, oxygenates your blood. But we weren't ready for it, like Ali said. Mm-hmm. And we used to get up and walk away from like, man, this dude is crazy as hell. But when I saw this one book, Manual by Yogi Bhajan, it really talked about the esoteric benefits that come from yoga, the siddhas and, all that type of stuff. And, I was like, damn, Uncle Will, yoga's about all this stuff. We can get superpowers and all that stuff and be superheroes. And he was like, yeah, that's one of the byproducts. But, a lot of people kind of get stuck on that stuff. And that's not what it's about. It's about, uniting with that universal self, that big self, and kind of getting rid of that small S self and identifying wholeheartedly with that big S self. But honestly, that's the thing that kind of drew me to it. And then when we actually started practicing at Lake Montebello, which is kind of surrounded by like long needle pines and a lake, which is ideal conditions to do pranayama because there's so much prana around those type of areas. And after practicing with him, like opening my eyes and, seeing things move in front of my eyes, like little bubbles and stuff, I'm like, man, what the hell is that? And, he was like, man, that's the prana, that's the life force, that's the energy in the air and within us and within everybody. And I kind of saw how it strengthened myself, and I can speak for Ali and Andy too. It strengthened us mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And, we were hooked. And with the suffering that we saw in the world, it became our calling to kind of share it with others. And I guess that's what started us on the journey. But it was really, honestly, like a lot of people, I was lost as hell. And, yoga kind of picked me up and cradled me and brought me back to my true self. And I've been sold and wanting to share it ever since.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ali, I'm not sure how much of your thunder Atman stole, but anything you'd like to add to the story?
No, I mean, I just know my own thing that drew me back to the practice was I feel like, how like you feel like there's something missing from your life, but you can't really figure out what it is. I know meditating was a big part of my life when I was a kid. And then around the 5th grade, when our parents got divorced, it was something there was a lot of things that changed in our life drastically. We weren't vegan or vegetarian anymore. We weren't meditating anymore. And it was something that just wasn't around anymore. And I feel like throughout my life, there was something that was missing. You know what I mean? And I couldn't figure out what it was. I don't think I realized what it was until Uncle Will started telling us about, like, I mean, like the unlimited universal energy and bliss and love and peace that's inside of everyone and everything. And then talking to us about how great it was. But I remember just like struggling to figure out how to get to it, and like having long conversations with him about my meditation practice. And at first time I felt like that bliss inside of me was like, holy shit, like this is like a real thing. And then him talking to him about it and be like, well, you've just scratched the surface. Like you can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper with this. And I think it was just that. Like, I mean, he used to always tell us, like, we used to always try to get him to go places, and he'd be like, well, why do I have to go anywhere if there's a whole universe inside of me? And he really meant it. Like, it was hard to get him out of the house, but just starting to figure out what he was talking about and how to tap into all these things inside of me was just what drew me in. Because it was like, it was more exciting than anything else that was going on. You know what I mean? Like, we do a lot of cool stuff, but I feel like my inner journey is probably the most exciting thing that's really going on, because it's just kind of getting to know my true self, which is in really getting to know everyone else and everything else in the entire universe, kind of all bundled into one, which is pretty cool.
And in this time of COVID, you're giving a lot of people hope that there's something new they could focus on while they're home. Everybody's got the time right now. So the timing feels good.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
So we're kind of moving along this involution that we were talking about earlier. And I would love to make it, I appreciate hearing all of your stories. And some of those stories I hadn't heard, so extra appreciation for them. Thanks for sharing. And I'd love to make it really practical for folks that are listening, and just talk about some of the big things going on in our society, right? How societal change can happen from this. Like I'm hearing it through all of you, like how it changes your lives through the Holistic Life Foundation. It's transforming a community, of people, education. And I'd love for Andy, if you would start. So I think we'll talk about politics, social justice, and the coronavirus pandemic. And Andy, if you would start just speaking to this idea of involution through the lens of politics, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main thing is when you heard Ali Atman and I say what was going on, you noticed that it wasn't anything external that we were talking about, right? We were talking about that maybe there's some ills and wrongs in the external world, but all the progress we were making was internal, right? So we were evolving internally, right? And I think one of the reasons we use the word involution too is because a lot of times people get upset and frustrated with the state of the world and what's going on, and especially in politics, right? You have these two sides that are always battling against each other, and everyone wants a revolution, right? And we're LOVE, we're all about love, and we're like, well, let's not do the evolution thing. Let's the revolution thing. Let's do an evolution thing, but we don't want it to be just our physical bodies evolving like we have been, right? It's an evolution of inward stuff. So going inward and learning that journey that Ali was talking about, how he was missing something, and how, it made me feel and see the world through a different way. And Altman was in this rut of in bad place, he said, and this is what transformed him. And that transformation happens inside of you. And I think when we all do start, going inward and walking that path, then we can look at politics in a different light. I think that nowadays it's turned to so much to be like my team versus your team, right? It's one side versus another. It's so polarizing and so divisive because if you say anything and then you state which side you were for, it's almost like the Steelers-Ravens rivalry, right? If you go into a place and you say something about, you go to Pittsburgh and say something about the Ravens, everyone's like, oh, get up out of here, right? And if you go to Pittsburgh, you say something about Baltimore, like, get up out of here. That's how it is with politics. You go somewhere and you say something about being a Republican, they're like, and there's Democrats in there, it's like, and it's like, instead of it being a means, which I think initially it was for us to understand that people have different opinions and different viewpoints, and we're supposed to talk with each other to communicate and find what is the best solution for everybody. I think ultimately that's what it's supposed to be. But I think that now it's not leading to that, because it is this my team versus your team, you know, like red versus blue, all this type of stuff. And it's so extreme now with the state the world is in that it's very, it's just traumatic. And I think that as we go into this involution and we start going inward and we start seeing ourselves in other people, we start realizing that, hey, you could be going through something different than I'm going through. You're experiencing something different than I do. You may have different opinions than mine, but you know what? That's okay. Because even though we are one, we are still individuals. And I think that as we start involving, right, that involution starts coming. I don't even know if that's a real verb, but we're going to say it for now, right? I don't think it is, honestly. But still, as you start going inward like that, then maybe it won't be so much my team versus yours. And it'll be, hey, that it's our team, you know? It's like left wing, right wing. It doesn't matter. It's the same bird, right? And if we could all look at it as one bird instead, and that we're trying to make the best out of this bird, then there maybe not be so much attacking. And you know, one thing I think is very, very important that I have to say, and it's because if I don't, I think that Uncle Will be very upset with me, is this concept of love too. Is I feel like there's so much anger right now, you know, and it's never going to help. Hate's never solving anything. And hey, you know, there may be a guy in office that people don't like. You know, I'm not saying who he is. He might be a douchebag. Who knows? You know what I mean? But you should still love him. My teacher would tell me I have to love him. You know, I have to, because throwing hate's not helping anything. And I think that part of that involution will allow people to learn to be more loving, to be more understanding, and so that we can start having conversations which will allow us to create solutions, and then we can take actions towards those solutions to make the world a better place.
Thank you. What do I do if I'm, you know, reading the news in the morning and I'm finding myself, you know, that like, you know, there's anxiety rising and I'm seeing that like left and right side, like what's something like just a simple practical tool you would encourage someone to use in that moment? Like, what do I do?
Don't read the news.
Just don't read the news. Okay, tip number one, everyone.
Do something that kind of gets you grounded. Whether it's if you have a dog, I know what gets me grounded is walking my dog in the morning and doing like, you know, thanks to John Kabat-Zinn, we learn walking meditation or mindful walking. And while I do that with my dogs, you know, I employ some tantric practices where I'll maybe tap into energy center and see that in myself while I'm walking, while saying a mantra that is correlated to stimulating that chakra. Gardening. I know Andy, he writes music. Ali just got a dog. It's just honestly cutting that external noise out that you know that's not healthy for you, and doing something, connecting with people, connecting with Mother Earth, connecting with other animals, connecting with yourself, you know, like that's what it's about.
But do we do that all the time? Like, but you can't like cut off from the world though, right? So is it that we do that so that then we can read the news so our anxiety doesn't rise? Is that the idea? Sorry, Ollie, if I cut you off.
No, I'm just saying the news is going to piss you off. And at some point you have to stay informed. But I know one thing Uncle Will used to always talk to us, it was about the hardest form of yoga and the easiest form of yoga at the exact same time is a form called Bhakti Yoga, which is pretty much just like you only use the physical form as a reference. You're always going deeper to see the light within yourself, to see the light within anyone and everything else. So he was always talked about respect and looking again and seeing, like if you're mad at somebody, see them, see their physical, but you're using that only as a reference. Like you always go to that light because in actuality, we're all spiritually connected and universally connected. So if you hate that person, you're in turn hating yourself. And whatever energy you put out there is coming right back to you a lot stronger. So if there are people that do piss you off, like it's okay because that anger like fuels a lot of movement and passion and change. But you can't let that anger kind of motivate your actions and carry you through your entire day, month, year, whatever, like decades long. And people hold on to anger. But definitely going into your light and seeing the light in those people that you love, but also those people that you don't, that piss you off. I think that's the hardest part of bhakti is it's all about loving, so you don't have to physically do anything, but it's hard to love those people that really are that you think are making the world a lot worse off.
So that's the practice. I mean, is being able to love
Yes.
pissing you off. Thank you. So Ali, would you talk a little bit about, there's a lot going on in our country and the world around the social justice movement, and a lot of folks just kind of, just like with, with politics and the coronavirus, just kind of feeling kind of lost in it, maybe losing themselves, not knowing where the ground is. Like, could you talk a little bit about how you think about these inner practices through that lens?
Yeah, and so I think social justice, excuse me, I think social justice is one of the things that was like one of the lenses that we were taught through when it came time for us to like develop the Holistic Life Foundation, our practice. Like Uncle Will and my dad were both, excuse me, like social activists, Black Panthers, like, so they were into change and like change in a sense where they were going to force change on the world, but they both kind of got out of it because that wasn't really what a way the change was going to be made. Like you had to change yourself first before you could change the world. So I think a lot of the things that we saw and a lot of the ideals that they had within them shine through the Holistic Life Foundation. Like we don't ever go into a community to go save anybody. Like, and a lot of people go in with that savior mentality to go try to save someone, but that's never what we've ever done. We're all about empowering people with the practice so they can save themselves and help the people around them to teach them to save themselves as well. Entrepreneurship was a big part of Holistic Life Foundation. I know our dad didn't want us to suffer through going to get jobs and getting stuck under that glass ceiling that a lot of Black people and brown people and women get stuck under when you're going out into the corporate world and you're trying to get a job and you're trying to succeed and you're seeing people that don't look like you or anybody on this panel that are going above you and they're just getting promoted above you and you're stuck in a certain place. And I don't think he wanted us to be frustrated through that and live through that. So he pushed us into entrepreneurship, the employment that we do of people of color, people who have gone through the criminal justice system might not get a fair opportunity in other places because of a mistake that may have made from just the hand that they were dealt in life and they were trying to survive the best they could under those circumstances. So I think all those things play a part in why the Holistic Life Foundation was formed. And I think if you are into social justice, you are trying to make change in the world today, like it starts with looking, I think the meditative process is a very introspective process where you have to look at all your own stuff. Because there are a lot of people who aren't aware of the things they're doing to make the world worse for other groups of people. Like you might not be aware of it. And I think meditation is one of those beautiful things and tough things. You know, I mean, there are a lot of people that get turned off from meditation because you're staring in the mirror at all your bullshit. Like all of it's there, it's staring you in the face, and you have to confront it, you have to deal with it. And I think if people could do that, they'd be a lot more aware of their inherent biases, their racism, their sexism, their classism, all those isms that you don't really want to have that you might not even be in touch with. It's going to make you'll be in touch with all those things. So then you can start to work through all that stuff and work through it and start to release it. And then you can start to make a change in the outside world after you kind of get all your own stuff together. And I know one thing that Uncle Will used to always tell us was you have to see the light in yourself before you can see it in anything or anyone else on the entire planet. So I think you have to get in touch with your own universal nature before you can truly start to really love and care about people in that really deep, connected, universal way.
And what would you suggest to people who are seeing, they're seeing these different images of all these peaceful protests, and then there's violence going on and other people kind of coming in to get in the way of those peaceful protests. How do you to guide or mentor people to be able to hold all of that at the same time? Because I know I've struggled with that, and I've definitely gotten, angry at the people that are causing violence when there's all these people trying to be peaceful. And like, what do you suggest, to be able to hold both of those things?
I think that you have to look at, there's balance in the universe. You know what I mean? Things aren't, and nowhere in the universe are things all one way or all another way. There's always balance in everything.
Mm.
And I think that's just a part of what's going on. There are people who want to express themselves violently for whatever reason. I mean, there's a lot of different theories on why there are people being violent out there,
Yeah.
and there are people who are going to be peaceful. And it's just one of those things that you have to look at. You don't know where people are coming from, what their life path's been, what their motivations are. Peace and love are always ideally the way to go. But at some point, some people get angry enough, and you got to start rattling the cages a little bit to kind of to balance all that out and to really make some change. So, yeah, I think that's about
So
it.
there's just a trust in that kind of the universe is balancing this out in a way that needs to be in order to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and then we're in, like if you for any of the listeners that are or us have looked at the in Kriya Yoga, they talk about the great clock and the ages that we're going through and the yugis that we're going through, and we're in a stage right now where we're coming out of the darkness and going into a lighter period. And there are those phases in between where it's like a stage of like chaos and friction and commotion with the old ideas trying to hold on and the new ideas trying to come in. And that's what's going on now. You know what I mean? There's a lot. Like, even if you look at when we started the Holistic Life Foundation to now, like back in 2001, nobody was really talking about, like, we didn't really hear anybody talking about yoga. We were introducing people to it and they had no clue what we were talking about. Now you can't go anywhere and nobody's heard of yoga or meditation or mindfulness and all these other like alternative forms of healing. Like there's all these things that are out there and they're permeating through, but there's also that old paradigm that's holding on for dear life to, no, you can't do that. You have to do it the old way. You have to do it the old way. And I think it's just that universal energetic struggle that's going on.
Thank you. It's a great perspective. All right, Atman, would you talk about this kind of, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. You can't not hear about or know about the coronavirus pandemic. We're all living in just kind of this, easily living in this low level kind of worry or fear. All of our daily habits have been, shifted, and a lot of people are struggling. People are working from home. There's less connection with others. How do you think about these practices, this involution, in response to that?
I mean, as the great thespian Cardi B said, coronavirus shit is real. Like, shit is real. Like, it has really rocked the reality of what we knew as what it means to be human right now. Like, Ali, Andy, and I, we're big huggers. We love connecting with people. And like, you have to, at the very most, you can give somebody an elbow bump or, something like that. So it has really changed what our reality is. But I think that the beautiful thing, besides, like, there's so much negative that's going on with coronavirus, the death, people dying, people getting sick, people getting disconnected from people, on top of many other things. But it really makes you analyze, like, where we really living before. As Andy always says, like, we're supposed to be called human beings, but we're like human doings. Like, we have 9 to 5s where, we can't connect with ourselves or our families. The school system, like most of the behavior shaping institutions are so outdated. That's why a lot of kids don't succeed in them, because, sitting down in the classroom is something of the past. Like, get the kids outside and in nature, and that way you can social distance. As far as, connecting, like, so many people work from 9 to 5 and work one long day for the entire week, that when it comes to the weekend, you have to rest and rejuvenate yourself to get ready for the work day on Monday. And it's really teaching a lot of people that, 9 to 5s isn't really where, we need to be as a society. You can hold people accountable by completing tasks or whatever, but, there's a lot of time that we've seen that is wasted by making people or holding people down to having to work a 9 to 5.
And this is changing all that too, right? Because a lot of people just can't, especially people at home with children, like they're having to work stop. So everyone's kind of getting to explore something different, even if it's a little bit harder, right? It's kind of pushing that change.
Definitely. And it's kind of reintroducing parents to their kids because, they're spending so much more time with their kids. And, you can see your kids for who they are and be there for them to support them in ways that that they need to be supported. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's basically, where I stand. And then honestly, it allows, like, I know a lot of people are struggling because a lot of people are, losing jobs. In Baltimore, a lot of people at this time, they weren't able to make rent because they lost their job. So a lot of people are getting evicted. But, to those people who were blessed to be able to generate an income and not have to do that 9 to 5, they saw different ways where they need to kind of make themselves healthier mentally, physically, spiritually. I know myself and Andy and Ali, we haven't been able to dive into our personal practice for a long time because, we were traveling, speaking, setting up programs, doing the administrative work. And, I know my mat practice suffered from that. And I know during this time of COVID, I've dove deeper into my personal practice than ever before. And that's kind of helped me be grounded when I'm helping out like the communities that we do help and actually seeing what they need, talking to them about how they can kind of take advantage of this time. And yeah, I mean, I personally think that this was, it sucks because, a lot of people are sick. A lot of people are, losing their jobs. And there's a lot of death going around, but it definitely helps people kind of take a closer look at, what they're doing with their lives and, what's important, what's not. And, maybe we can kind of reshape these behavior shaping institutions to make them benefit humanity in a way and, Mother Earth and all the other animals in a way that we've never really looked at before because everybody has been put on pause for a little while. And, seeing what's important to them, seeing what's important to their family, and honestly, just reconnecting with your family and, making sure your family is grounded. And yeah, I mean, so it sucks, this reality, but it may be a blessing in disguise to help us, like Ali was saying, raise consciousness to a higher level and become, once again, human beings instead of, like Andy says, human doings.
Thank you. Thank you. I've appreciated all of the little ideas and tips. And, I know there's a lot of people living kind of with that fear and that unease. And so to know there's, what I hear from all of you is just this desire for deepening. And I think there is that call. And obviously it's a privilege. All of us on this call have the privilege of having a job and being able to do that work. And being able to develop ourselves in that way. So just in the last couple of minutes, I think we're running out of time. I would love just to hear about one of you share about this new project, the Involution group, right? That you're all working on, which is kind of next level deepening of practice and offering to corporations and to education, to youth and to adults. Share a little bit about it and let us know what we can look out for in the future.
So I think a lot of this started around the time that our teacher transitioned. He was our teacher. He's our best friend, or is, because he's not anywhere. He's just not here physically anymore. He's still around. We can definitely still feel him, but it was just, we just started doing a little looking around for things that the practice that meant the most to us and had the biggest change in us. We couldn't share with people because they were like really deeply spiritual practices. A lot of the things that we've been talking about, we can't with you. I mean, just now, we can't talk about in schools. Like we do a lot of teaching, like kind of with our hands shackled when we're just kind of like teaching from a place of we're just like if there was an iceberg, we're just
Secular. It needs to be secular, right?
definitely being secular.
Yeah.
We got to be very, very careful because we don't want to turn anyone off from the
Mhm.
practice. And we just it's just something we've been very mindful of. So I think with the Involution group, it's a chance for us to kind of take those shackles off and really teach. Last September, we were in Alaska teaching at an adult detention center,
Mhm.
and we walked in and we were asking the people that brought us up there. We were like, "Hey, so how deep can we go with them?" They're like, "Oh, well, go ahead, jump down the rabbit hole." And I think us teaching from a place of just like freedom and being able to go as deeply as we want with the practice kind of lit us up just as much as it lit up the people we were teaching. Like, yeah, we need to do more of this. And then like the universe kind of pushed us in that direction, just like it did with Holistic Life Foundation, where it was like, all right, well, you guys need to really be able to teach. And we stepped out of our administrative roles at HLF, which gave us more time. And we started the Involution group, which is all about making that interpersonal change and to change the world outwardly. So we've got courses we're working on. We've got a mantra workshop coming up where actually people get free miles if they sign up for the workshop. So there's a lot that we're working on and putting together to get out there because there's a lot of suffering in the world, and I think people need something deeper than just awareness practices. Like there's a lot of stuff where they can be aware of what's going on and aware of their breath and aware of their thoughts, but people need a deeper connection. They don't, and there's not a lot of outlets out there for them to do that. So we wanted to become a resource and outlet to people because, I mean, I feel like that's one of the major things our teacher taught us and that we want to share with the world.
Thank you, guys. Why don't we end just sharing one word, one or two words you'd like to leave the listeners with. Atman, you want to start?
The change starts within. Understand what we're talking about as far as involution, and that way you can kind of make a change in the world.
Thanks. Andy?
I thought Atman was going to say love for sure. I thought he was going to get me. I'm going to do a two-parter. I'm going to say, don't forget, love is the most powerful force in the universe. And famous Yogananda phrase, I think, helps with all these concepts that we're talking about. Divisions are imaginary lines drawn by small minds.
Say that again.
Divisions are imaginary lines drawn by small minds.
Thank you. Ali?
I guess just remember that your inner journey is your inner journey. It's no one else's. You have fun with it. Make it the way that you want it to be. Don't let anyone else put constraints on it, but it's your inner journey to getting to know your true self. So have as much fun as you possibly can with it.
Thank you. And I'll just end with gratitude for the three of you and everything you offer to the world and your hearts. Thanks for being with us, you guys.
We love you so much, Michelle. You're amazing.
Thanks, Michelle.
Love you too.
Soren, thanks for this too, buddy. Be safe.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.